I want to tell you something that changed my life forever, something I never thought I would live to share with anyone. My name is Carolina, and I was born into royalty in a wealthy Islamic kingdom in the Middle East. Growing up behind golden gates and marble walls, I had everything money could buy, but I didn't know I had nothing that truly mattered. Let me take you back to where this all began. I was raised in luxury that most people can't even imagine. My father was a prince. My mother came from one of the most respected families in our region, and I was their precious daughter, protected from the outside world. From the moment I could understand words, I was taught the prayers, the rituals, the traditions. 5 times a day, we prayed. During Ramadan, we fasted. I covered myself as was expected. I did everything right, or so I thought. When I turned 19, my parents arranged my marriage to Hassan, a wealthy businessman from a powerful family. He was 15 years older than me, stern and traditional, but this was normal in our culture. I didn't question it. On our wedding day, I wore the most beautiful dress, covered in diamonds and gold thread. Hundreds of guests came to celebrate. Everyone said I was the luckiest girl in the kingdom. The first year of marriage was difficult, but I kept my struggles to myself. Hassan was controlling, demanding, and cold. He wanted a perfect Islamic wife, someone who would never question him, never challenge him, never think for herself. I tried so hard to be what he wanted, but inside, I felt empty. I would perform my prayers, but the words felt hollow. I followed all the rules, but my heart felt like a desert, dry and lifeless. Then something unexpected happened that would change everything. Hassan hired a new maid named Mary, a Filipino woman who came to work in our home. I wasn't supposed to speak much with the servants, but Mary had this light in her eyes, something I couldn't explain. She was poor, had nothing compared to what I had, yet she seemed to carry joy that I had never experienced despite all my wealth. One afternoon, when Hassan was away on business, I found Mary in the garden, and I couldn't help but ask her, "Mary, why do you always seem so peaceful? You work so hard, you're far from your family, you have so little, yet you smile like you have everything." She looked at me with such kindness and said something that made my heart skip. "Princess Carolina, I do have everything. I have Jesus." That name, Jesus. I had heard it before, of course. In Islam, we learned that Jesus was a prophet, nothing more. But the way Mary said his name was different. It was personal, intimate, like she was talking about someone she knew, someone who loved her. I should have walked away right there. I should have reported her for trying to share her Christian faith with me. But instead, I asked her to tell me more. Over the next few weeks, whenever we were alone, Mary would tell me about Jesus. She told me he wasn't just a prophet, but God who came to earth as a man. She told me he died on a cross to pay for our sins and rose again 3 days later. She said that through him, we could know God personally, not just follow rules and hope it was enough. She told me that Jesus loved me so much that he would have died just for me, even if I was the only person on earth. I argued with her at first. Everything she said contradicted what I had been taught my entire life. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. At night, alone in my room, I would wonder if what she said could be true. Could there really be a God who loved me personally? Could forgiveness really be free, not something I had to earn through good works and perfect obedience? Then Mary did something incredibly brave. She gave me a Bible, hidden inside a cooking book. "Please, Princess, just read the book of John," she whispered. "Ask God to show you the truth." I hid that Bible like it was the most dangerous thing in the world, because in my world it was. If anyone found it, if Hassan found it, I didn't want to think about what would happen. Late at night, when everyone was asleep, I would read by flashlight under my covers like a child. And as I read the words of Jesus, something began to break inside me. He said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." I was so weary, so burdened by trying to be perfect, trying to earn God's approval, trying to find meaning in empty rituals. He said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Not a way, but the way. One night, about 2 months after Mary first told me about Jesus, I was alone in my room, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. I fell to my knees, and for the first time in my life, I prayed from my heart, not from memorized words. "Jesus," I whispered, "if you are real, if you really died for me, if you really love me, I want to know you. I give you my life. Save me." Nothing dramatic happened in that moment. No lightning, no audible voice. But something shifted deep in my soul. For the first time in my life, I felt peace. Real peace. The emptiness that had always been there was filling with something warm and alive. I wept quietly, feeling a love I had never known, understanding for the first time what it meant to be truly free. The next few months were the most beautiful and terrifying of my life. I continued to pretend to be the dutiful Islamic wife Hassan expected, but inside, I was completely changed. I read the Bible every chance I got. Mary and I would pray together in secret. I felt like I was living 2 lives, and I knew it couldn't continue forever. But I was afraid. I had heard stories of what happened to Muslims who converted to Christianity in our region. Honor killings, disownment, prison, death. I tried to be so careful, but I made one terrible mistake. In my joy and excitement, I wrote about my faith in a journal. I wrote about meeting Jesus, about the peace I found, about how I finally understood what real love was. I kept it hidden in a locked drawer in my private dressing room, a place Hassan never went. I thought it was safe, but one day, Hassan came home early from a business trip. He was in a suspicious mood, and he demanded to check my things. I don't know what made him suspicious. Maybe I had been too happy, too peaceful, too different. He tore through my belongings, and when he found the locked drawer, he forced it open. And there it was. My journal, my Bible, my secret exposed. I will never forget the look on his face when he read those pages. It wasn't just anger. It was pure rage mixed with something like betrayal and disgust. "You became a Christian?" he screamed. "You betrayed Allah? You betrayed me? You betrayed your family, your people, everything?" He grabbed me by my hair and dragged me through the house. I was screaming, trying to explain, but he wouldn't listen. He called his brothers, my father, the religious leaders. Within hours, my fate was decided. I had committed apostasy, the unforgivable sin in their eyes. I had brought shame upon both our families. They took me to a separate wing of Hassan's estate, a place that was supposed to be storage rooms. They threw me into a small, dark room with stone walls and one tiny window near the ceiling. And then Hassan did something I never imagined. He chained me. Actual chains, like I was an animal, attached to the wall so I could barely move across the small space. "You will stay here until you renounce this false faith," he told me coldly. "You will stay here until you come to your senses, until you remember who you are. No one will know you're here. As far as the world is concerned, you've gone to stay with relatives due to illness. You will either return to Islam, or you will die in this room." The first night in that room, chained and alone in the dark, I broke down. I cried until I had no tears left. I was terrified. I thought about renouncing Jesus just to survive, just to escape. Who would know? Who would blame me? But even as I thought those thoughts, I remembered Jesus' own words. "Whoever denies me before men, I also will deny before my Father who is in heaven." So I made a decision that night. If this was the cost of following Jesus, I would pay it. If I died in that room, I would die knowing him. And something incredible happened. As I made that choice, Peace came again. Not happiness. The situation was horrible, but a deep peace that didn't make sense. I remembered Jesus' promise. I will never leave you, nor forsake you. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. They brought me minimal food and water, just enough to keep me alive. The chains rubbed my ankles raw. I couldn't bathe properly. I couldn't stand up fully. The room was cold at night and suffocatingly hot during the day. Hassan would come occasionally to ask if I was ready to recant. Each time I refused, he would leave me in darker despair, sometimes not sending food for days. But here's what they couldn't understand. I wasn't alone in that room. I would pray, and I would feel Jesus' presence so strongly. I would sing worship songs that Mary had taught me, quietly, so no one would hear. I would recite verses from the Bible I had memorized. And somehow, impossibly, there was joy even in that prison. Not constant, not overwhelming, but real. There were dark moments, of course. Times when I questioned if I had made the right choice. Times when the loneliness and pain felt unbearable. Times when I cried out to God asking why, asking how long, asking if he had forgotten me. But each time, he would remind me of his promises. He would bring a verse to my mind, or give me a dream of encouragement, or fill me with his presence in a way that sustained me. The hardest part wasn't the physical suffering. It was the isolation, not knowing if anyone in the world knew where I was or cared, not knowing if I would ever see sunlight again, ever feel grass under my feet, ever hug another person. The chains on my ankles were nothing compared to the weight of loneliness. But I learned something profound in that prison. When you have nothing else, when everything is stripped away, you discover whether your faith is real. And mine was. After about 18 months, something shifted. A new guard started bringing my food, a younger man who seemed uncomfortable with my situation. One day, he whispered to me, "I'm sorry for what they're doing to you. This isn't right." I was shocked. I hadn't heard a kind word in so long. He started bringing me a little extra food, a blanket when it was cold, and most importantly, news from the outside world. He told me that Mary, my maid, had been deported back to the Philippines. But before she left, she had told other Christians about me. People were praying for me. Knowing that people were praying changed everything. I wasn't forgotten. I wasn't alone. Somewhere in the world, people who had never met me were interceding for me before God's throne. That knowledge gave me strength to endure even longer. Then, after 2 years and 3 months in that room, something miraculous happened. The guard came to me in the middle of the night with the keys to my chains. "You need to leave now," he said urgently. "There's a plan to move you somewhere worse tomorrow. I don't agree with this. I'm letting you go. There's a car waiting outside the east gate. Run and don't look back." I couldn't believe it. Was this real or a cruel dream? My legs were so weak from lack of use that I could barely stand. He had to help me walk. We crept through the dark corridors of the estate, and I kept thinking someone would discover us. But we made it to the gate, and there, just as he said, was a car with a driver I didn't recognize. "Go," the guard said. "May your God protect you." I got in the car, and we drove through the night. The driver explained that he was part of an underground network of Christians who helped persecuted believers escape. Mary had connected them with the guard before she was deported. They had been working for months to create this opportunity. We drove to a neighboring country, where I was hidden in a safe house while arrangements were made for my asylum. It took 6 more months of living in hiding, of processing paperwork, of interviews with officials. But eventually, I was granted asylum in a Western country. I had to leave with nothing. No money, no possessions, no contact with my family. I was officially dead to them, but I was alive. I was free. The first time I walked into a church as a free woman, I wept through the entire service. To worship Jesus openly, to sing his praises out loud, to be with other believers without fear. It was overwhelming. I had dreamed of this moment during those dark days in chains, and now it was real. People often ask me if I regret my choice. After everything I lost, my family, my wealth, my country, my culture, was it worth it? And I tell them the same thing every time. I would do it again, 1,000 times over. Because what I lost was nothing compared to what I gained. I lost a gilded cage, but I gained freedom. I lost a religion of rules, but I gained a relationship with the living God. I lost my earthly family, but I gained an eternal family. I lost temporary riches, but I gained treasure in heaven. The chains left scars on my ankles that I still have today. Sometimes people see them and ask what happened, and I tell them. I tell them about the chains that held my body but couldn't touch my soul. I tell them about the Jesus who was with me in that dark room, who sustained me when I had nothing else, who orchestrated my escape when it seemed impossible. Living in freedom now, I've had to build a completely new life. I had to learn a new language, adapt to a new culture, find work, make new friends. It hasn't been easy. I've struggled with trauma, with nightmares, with fear that somehow Hassan will find me. I've grieved the loss of my mother, my siblings, everyone I knew. Sometimes the pain of that loss is almost unbearable. But here's what I've discovered. Jesus doesn't promise us an easy life. He promises us a meaningful one. He doesn't promise comfort. He promises his presence. And his presence is enough. On my hardest days, when I miss my family, when I feel alone, when the memories of those 2 years haunt me, I remember that I'm not alone. The same Jesus who was with me in chains is with me now, and he will be with me forever. I've also had the incredible privilege of seeing God use my story. I now work with an organization that helps persecuted Christians, particularly women who have fled from oppressive situations. I get to tell them that I understand, that I've been there, that there is hope. I've seen women come out of darkness into light, and it reminds me of my own journey. And Mary, my precious friend who risked everything to tell me about Jesus, we reconnected. She's back in the Philippines, still serving God, still telling people about Jesus. She cries every time we video call because she says she never thought she'd see me again. She thought I had been killed. When I told her I was free, she said it was the answer to 2 years of daily prayer. If you're listening to my story today, maybe you're in your own kind of prison. Maybe it's not physical chains, but chains of addiction, of fear, of shame, of meaninglessness. Maybe you're going through suffering that you don't understand, and you're wondering if God sees you, if he cares, if he's even real. I want to tell you what I discovered in that dark room. God is real. Jesus is who he says he is. And he loves you more than you can possibly imagine. He loved you enough to die for you. He loves you enough to walk with you through your darkest valley. He loves you enough to never leave you, no matter what. The Jesus I met isn't a distant prophet or a historical figure. He's alive. He's personal. And he's reaching out to you right now. You don't have to earn his love. You don't have to be good enough. You just have to come to him, exactly as you are, with all your brokenness and sin and doubt, and say yes to him. That's what I did in my bedroom in that palace, all those years ago. I said yes to Jesus, and that yes cost me everything I had. But it gave me everything I needed. It led me through fire, through chains, through darkness, but it also led me to freedom, to peace, to purpose, to him. Today, I'm Carolina, not a princess by earthly standards anymore, but a daughter of the King of Kings. Not wealthy in material things, but rich in faith, not living in a palace, but looking forward to an eternal home that will never fade. And these scars on my ankles? They're my testimony. They're proof that faith is real, that God is faithful, and that nothing, not chains, not persecution, not even death itself, can separate us from the love of Christ. If my story does one thing, I hope it shows you that Jesus is worth everything. Whatever it costs, whatever you have to give up, whatever you have to endure, He is worth it all. Because in the end, the only thing that matters is knowing Him. Everything else fades away, but He remains forever.